A familiar timbre drifted through the mural hall, the kind of voice that seemed to arrive wrapped in the echoes of another lifetime. And Nanu Ashan paused mid-stroke beneath the fading lamp glow, his trembling fingers loosening around the brush as though the sound itself had travelled across years before finally reaching him. Slowly, Ashan turned, and through eyes weakened by age, sleeplessness, and devotion, he saw Angad standing near the raised platform of the mural wall, weary from travel, carrying upon him the silence of distant countries and forgotten years, yet somehow still belonging to the temple more than the world he had left it for. Ashan descended carefully from the scaffold, one slow step after another, his frail body resisting him while his eyes refused to leave Angad's face. And when he finally stood before him, he held Angad's hand tightly in silence, because certain griefs and affections survive too long inside silence to suddenly find words. Around them, the mural hall remained still, filled only with the scent of lime, pigment, ancient stone, and oil lamps that had watched generations pass through those sacred walls. That evening, Angad returned to Pitambaran Thambi's house, carrying within him a heaviness he could neither explain nor escape. And though he bathed and attempted to rest, sleep arrived only in fragments, restless and incomplete. And before dawn had fully entered the world, he found himself awake once again, staring into darkness that no longer felt unfamiliar. Downstairs, Pitambaran quietly abandoned his account books the moment he noticed Angad descending the stairs, sensing without words the storm gathering within him and the inevitability of departure neither man truly wished to acknowledge. The following morning, unease spread quietly through the temple corridors, because Ashan, who had never failed to arrive before sunrise, was nowhere to be seen. And as concern deepened, Pisharadi, Poduwal and Dineshan hurried toward the old muralist's hut, only to find Pitambaran and Angad already standing there. Inside the dimly lit room, Nanu Ashan lay upon the cot, breathing shallowly, his body weakened by age, devotion, and exhaustion accumulated across decades beneath temple ceilings and sacred walls. For several moments, nobody moved. Then quietly, Angad stepped towards the old wooden cupboard, opened it slowly, and removed the dhoti that had rested there, carrying within its folds the memory of years spent painting gods beneath flickering oil lamps. Without another word, he gathered the painting tools and walked towards the temple pond. The freezing water closed around him silently, and Angad remained within it, motionless for several moments, as though the pond itself were cleansing something deeper than fatigue. When he emerged beneath the pale light of dawn, as he walked directly towards the sanctum, prostrated before the goddess, climbed the scaffold, and placed his hands once again upon the unfinished mural his father had left behind. At first, the temple watched in silence. Then slowly, colors awakened beneath Angad's hands. Red, green, blue, gold, emerging beneath the trembling lamp glow, while the unfinished form of the goddess slowly reclaimed life from the sacred wall. Villagers gathered quietly near the mandapam. Priests stood motionless beside the sanctum entrance, and the old temple corridors filled with a strange reverence, because something greater than craftsmanship seemed to unfold before them. For 5 long, uninterrupted hours, Angad painted without pause, his body surrendering entirely to memory rhythm, devotion, and inheritance, while time itself seemed to dissolve within the mural hall. And when he finally stepped down from the scaffold, exhaustion trembled through his body. Yet somewhere within him, there existed for the first time in years a quiet sense of completion. But the fragile peace shattered the moment he returned to the hut. Pitambaran sat there silently, holding Ashan's lifeless body. For several endless seconds, Angad remained motionless, as though his mind refused to accept what his eyes had already seen. Then grief broke through him completely, collapsing him to his knees beside the father he had reached years too late. Beside him, his phone vibrated continuously. 33 missed calls from Jenny, and the distant life waiting for him across the ocean. The following morning, the villagers gathered to honor Nanu Ashan, allowing his body to rest one final time within the courtyard before the funeral rites began. And Angad stood silently near the pyre, watching flames slowly consume the mortal remains of the man who had spent his entire existence offering color, devotion, and breath to temple walls. That night, members of the temple committee waited outside the hut, carrying upon their faces desperation, fear, and helplessness, because the festival remained only days away while the murals still stood unfinished. As they pleaded before him, the burden of generations slowly descended once again upon Angad's shoulders. While Dineshan eventually fell to his knees and spoke of the Devipuram warning that unfinished murals would bring ruin upon the family, causing the silence around them to deepen even further until the temple itself seemed to stand listening within the darkness. At 2 in the morning, Angad descended the staircase, quietly carrying his travel bag through the sleeping house before walking alone towards the temple one final time. He walked to the temple tank and beneath the cold darkness entered the freezing water and submerged himself completely, remaining beneath its surface as though he wished to disappear into silence itself. When he emerged trembling, he walked into the temple courtyard, folded his hands before the goddess, and stood there in wordless prayer while tears streamed down his face, carrying within them grief, apology, and helplessness. The unbearable uncertainty of not knowing which life still belonged to him anymore. By dawn, Pitambaran was ready for the airport journey, and before entering the car, Angad bent down and touched feet of Pitambaran's wife, lingering there briefly as though sensing that departures sometimes occur long before death itself. During the drive, silence filled most of the journey, until the weight within Angad finally collapsed upon itself near the terminal entrance, breaking him completely beneath years of exhaustion, loss, fear, and emotional restraint. While beside him, Pitambaran remained silent, and because there are moments when words only weaken sorrow instead of easing it. Hours later, while Angad's flight crossed oceans, Pitambaran travelled towards Pisharikav Temple in Koilandi, searching desperately for another mural artist, only to discover that the art itself had nearly vanished from the world. Because the remaining masters of the temple mural painting lived far away in Tanjavur and Madurai, and no one could arrive in time to save the unfinished walls of the Devipuram Temple before the deadline. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Angad returned to the United States only to discover that the ruins awaiting him there were even greater than he had feared, as divorce papers, job termination notices, Forged mortgage documents, unpaid installments, and legal threats collapsed around him within a single day, leaving behind the remains of a life that no longer resembled the future he had once believed in. With nowhere else left to turn, Angad travelled to the Indian embassy, where a family friend, Radhakrishnan, listened silently to the entire story before making several quiet phone calls through old contacts buried deep within the Indian business community. And by the end of that long day, passage had finally been secured for Angad aboard a cargo flight returning to India. While somewhere far away, within the fading oil lamp glow of Devipuram Temple, the unfinished goddess continued waiting silently upon the sacred wall.
Where stories begin.